Hello and welcome to a recent trip to China. In this trip, we're going to explore the city of Dandong. Dandong is called by some the most dangerous city in China. Why, you might ask? Because it shares the border with North Korea. In this video, we're going to actually cross over the border, and then we're going on to challenge the Phoenix Mountain, traversing the most dangerous and strenuous spot, the Old Cow's Back. And of course, with any video about China, there's the food. We'll sample some of Dandong's finest and some of its best street food. I arrived in Beijing Capital Airport to meet up with Song and her brother, who had already been in China for 2 or 3 weeks. We went right to my mother-in-law's house, which would be our base of operations for my time there. And the next morning, we were up and moving toward the train station to catch a bullet train to Dandong. Dandong is near the mouth of the Yalu River, and right across that river is North Korea. We boarded the bullet train in Chaoyang Railway Station, one of Beijing's least busy train station connecting to the bullet trains. We got a little breakfast while we were there, and no, we didn't stop at KFC, McDonald's, or Starbucks. The Chinese rail system is quite good. You buy a ticket, wait for the announcement, and you just walk down to the tracks to board the train. China's high-speed rail system is quite good, and the trains are clean, quiet, and fast. It's quite nice to sit back and watch the Chinese countryside flash by at over 200 miles an hour. And after 3 stops, we were in Dandong, China. After dropping off our luggage at a property owned by Cousin Ling Ling, we set off to explore Dandong. As in most of China, parking is a problem, but in Dandong, they solved it just by parking on the sidewalks. Worried about somebody blocking you in? Well, don't be. They leave their phone number on the dash so you can call them, and they'll come out and move the car. First stop in this city of 2 million plus is the waterfront of the Yalu River. Dandong is quite famous for being the largest city to share a border with North Korea, divided only by the Yalu River. And that's North Korea that you see there in the distance. We were told that most of those buildings are incomplete or just totally unoccupied. In fact, even though the city on the other side of the river in North Korea is relatively large at well over 1 million people, we saw almost zero activity, at least from where we were standing. Our host, Cousin Ling Ling and Xiaoxing, another cousin, took us by shops that sold Chinese goods, Russian goods, and even Korean goods. And as you can tell, this is a vibrant and bustling area. Our goal was a river cruise, where we would cruise down the middle of the Yalu River for a closer look at North Korea. The bridge you see in front of you is the world-famous Broken Bridge that was bombed by the Americans during the Korean War. And just on the other side of that bridge is a fully functional bridge called the Sino-Korean Friendship Bridge that connects China with North Korea. Well, the closer we got to the North Korean side, the more derelict it actually looked. Many of the buildings near the river looked incomplete, unoccupied, or just plain derelict. Many of the boats on the Korean side looked like they could be functional, and many of them looked like wrecks. And many of them were obviously just beached. On the front of this small container ship, we actually saw our first people. And here we saw the first person who was actually waving to us. But the contrast between the nearly dead North Korean side and the very active China side that is bustling with activity is quite evident. After disembarking our river cruise, it was time to take a look at the broken bridge. As you can well imagine, Dandong was a hub of activity during the Korean War. And in 1950, the American Air Force bombed this bridge, demolishing the Korean side of the bridge, leaving only the Chinese side standing. Today, the broken bridge still stands as a memorial to those who fought in the Korean War. Well, at least those who fought on the China and North Korea side. The bridge right next door is still intact and has plenty of traffic. Loaded trucks leave from the China side every day and return empty. There is no civilian traffic on the bridge other than the trucks. The only other currently functioning bridge on the river is a railway bridge further toward the mouth of the Yalu River. After our visit to the broken bridge, we headed off for dinner. And dinner tonight is a hotel and restaurant supposedly, maybe, probably owned by the North Koreans. The idea is that you stop here, order what you want, and it will show up in your private room later on, cooked and ready to eat. There was absolutely no shortage of choices, and we made several selections and headed up to our private room. According to a story given to us by anonymous sources, all of the waitresses and entertainers working at this particular hotel and restaurant are actually North Korean, and possibly the daughters and wives of relatively high-ranking North Korean officials. They never leave the hotel, do their tour, and return to North Korea. But other than that, there was some entertainment later in the evening that I was not allowed to video or to record any audio of. Regardless, the food was visually appealing and tasted very good. We said goodbye, went back to our apartment, and the next morning we had a tour of another broken bridge. No, not this one. This is the new Yalu River Bridge. This beautiful structure was begun in 2011 as a replacement for the Sino-Korean Friendship Bridge that you saw earlier. In about 2014, work stalled due to North Korea having stopped work and not completed any work on their side of the bridge. Work began again in 2017, but then stalled once more during COVID, and reports have it that it may just open in another year or so. China has sunk $350 million US into this project, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is still dragging their feet on their side. Well, moving on, we stopped for breakfast. This is the Three Treasures kanji shop and a great place for breakfast. Clean and featuring freshly made dishes of kanji and some very nicely done dim sum. And so the Three Treasures Kanji became our favorite breakfast stop, and we stopped there twice during this 3-day trip. And here's why. Freshly made wonton soup, a delicious rice kanji, and Song's new favorite, pumpkin and millet kanji, which she is still trying to recreate at home. and the rest was all the typical dim sum type treats that you can get almost anywhere in China, but very well done and better than most. And so after a satisfying breakfast, we were on our way once more through the pouring rain toward the next broken bridge. But on the way, we spotted a little market/park/overlook, and we stopped and took a look. We had a good view of North Korea and just how serious the Chinese were about keeping those North Koreans where they were at. We eventually made it to our next goal, the broken bridge at the mouth of the river. As it turns out, this is another bridge that the American Air Force bombed during the Korean War. And just as before, they only bombed it on the Korean side, leaving the bridge intact on the Chinese side all the way out to the middle of the river. What's unique about this bridge is that it protrudes just a few feet into the Korean space on the river. And you can walk out on the bridge enjoying this very stunning landscape and literally step over the border from China to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Right at the end of the bridge, they have this rather unique marker wishing for peace and flanked by what looks to be 2 bombs. As you leave the bridge, there are a few other monuments to take a look at, like this first supersonic jet fighter ever manufactured in China and based on a Russian MiG, and this tank that was manufactured in 1939 and still used during the Korean War, and we were told even later. Leaving the broken bridge, we returned to Dandong to take a walk along the riverside through one of the many parks that border the river on the Chinese side. That island you see out in the middle actually belongs to North Korea. After leaving the park, we went to get some dinner, once more with family and friends, and retired for the evening because the next day we would challenge Phoenix Mountain. Phoenix Mountain, also known as Fenghuangshan in Chinese, and is about 35 miles or 57 kilometers northwest of Dandong. Access to the hiking trails of the mountain are found in Fengcheng City. The tourist side of the mountain was developed by private enterprise and are not part of the state. The entrance fee for adults under 60 was a reasonable 80 yuan or about $12 per person. Now, lucky me, I'm over 70, so my ticket was free. Now, before you say lucky me, I think it was because they really didn't expect me to make it down off the side of that mountain. In any event, it started out easy with a nice bus ride with a bus driver that could have been a certifiable maniac before we were led into the big deal in a easy, lazy, structured, gentle walk up to a certain point. It was in this area that the man-made touristy things were done. Here we have a number of gods and goddesses lazing about, obviously laughing at us mere mortals as we approach the mountain. There are some beautiful temples where I probably should have stopped and prayed for wings, but most of the walk at this point was through forest and beautiful burbling brooks and waterfalls. There were a couple of easy water hazards to traverse. My advice on this one is take big steps or your feet will get wet. Song's feet got wet, but mine did not. And her brother and cousin Ling Ling, following in her steps and ignoring my example, did get wet. A few easy stairways, and then it started to get a little tougher. You'll notice here by the picture that I was still ahead of everyone else. We made it on foot to the next what would have been a bus stop to find these little guys. There were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of these beautiful pigeons crowding around the tourist and demanding to be fed. Watch as this brave lady becomes a human scarecrow and is almost literally covered by the birds. As it turned out, the pigeons were interesting animals and were definitely interested in only one of two things: food or, well, strutting their stuff. There was another temple at this level, and I was told, hey, ring that bell for luck. Here's that last temple where you could stop and ask for those wings. Leaving the temple and continuing our walk up the mountain, we eventually made it to, hey, a cable car. You are welcome to walk the rest of the way up, but we opted to pay a little bit more and take the cable car up the side of the mountain. Now, supposedly, it only takes about 2 hours or less to walk from the ground all the way up the side of the mountain. Now, I'm going to have to cry BS on that because after taking the bus part of the way up and now the cable car, it took us almost 45 minutes just to get to this spot. And after a 15 to 20 minute ride on the cable car, we found out that it would not drop us at the summit. I would have to think that walk, at least for someone like me, would be a full 3 hours. And that, of course, is if I could even do it. As you go up on the cable car, you can catch glimpses of those people ascending the mountain on foot as we continue on the cable car. And as we continued up, ever up, we saw trails carved into and cresting the mountains that we would be walking, and off in the distance, the glass bridge that at least I had no intention of walking to. Well, then it was off the cable car and on for our real ascent. Now, Song asked me, why would I put a picture of a railing here? Well, the answer to that is this railing and others like it turned out to be your lifeline. The lifeline, the safety net, if you will, that actually enabled me to climb the mountain. So join us as we begin our ascent of Phoenix Mountain. This, I will have to tell you, is the easy part, and our goal, or at least the one we had in mind, was to climb the old cow's back. More on that in just a few minutes. And once you or anyone else starts out on this journey, it is darn near impossible to turn back. The paths are one way, and become even more so as you continue up and down, up and down and up. Now, of course, as you continue, you are treated and rewarded with absolutely stunning views off the side of this mountain. Now, up to this point, I suppose you could turn around and make your way back to the cable car and demand to be sent back down. We actually saw only one woman during our cable car ascent who was riding down. I'm going to say she got as far as this and decided, no can do, and turned around and came back. This, I believe, is really the point of no return, because as you can see, this is truly one way, up. So we were getting closer to one of our first goals, the old cow's back. Look over Li Guang's right shoulder and you will see the old cow's back rising in the background. And there it is in all its glory, the hump on the old cow's back. More stairs and we eventually found the sign declaring, in Chinese, English, and Korean, that you have reached the old cow back. Now I will tell you that for safety reasons you should not be taking pictures here while you were on the trail. A few months ago, someone did just that and sat on the railing to try and get the perfect picture. Well, that railing is there for a purpose and not to be sat on. The man then lost his grip and slipped, falling backward over the cliff, sadly to his death. And after being told it was forbidden to sit here on thundry days, we began our ascent of the old cow's back in earnest. And if we were to switch to an eagle eye view, this is what we would see. Now I'm here to tell you that if you are uncomfortable with heights, especially exposed heights, as I am somewhat, this is really the time those railings truly become your new best friend. And as you can see from the view forward, we weren't done with our ascent. The ridgeline of the old cow's back peaks out at a lofty 2,625 feet or 800 meters. So as we found out, the highest part of the mountain at 2,743 feet or 836 meters was still to come. So up we continued to go until we made it here, the Glass Skywalk. Now for an additional 5 yuan, or about 75 cents US, you can have the privilege of walking this glass walkway that is only about 20 meters below the top of Jianyan Peak, the highest part of Phoenix Mountain. While this type of structure freaks some people out, this type of thing, despite my slight problem with heights, doesn't really bother me. As my legs turned to rubber, we began a descent. And I was all happy about that, thinking this part of the trip was over. But no, our adventure had actually just started. We went down all right, but it was just so we could go back up a neighboring peak. On this ascent, the trails were carved right into the side of the mountain, and your body had to contort into very interesting shapes just to keep moving forward. Then came some interesting fissures, some of which a man of my stature had difficulty or no business trying to squeeze through. But there was light at the end of the tunnel, and that light showed us that we would be descending once more, only so we could go back up. As we continued making our way along the one and only path, we found another touristy spot called the Arrow's Eye. Supposedly this is shaped like a hole a giant arrow might make. Occasionally, as we continued along, there would be a warning sign. Like this one, when translated, said, "The road is rough. Be careful. Thanks. Good advice." 2 members of our group had done this before. One was Cousin Ling Ling, who lives nearby, and the other was this fellow, my brother-in-law, Li Guang. Here he is, standing in front of a sign proudly proclaiming that he had made it to the top of Pegasus Peak. Now, Li Guang had traveled these paths about 3 years ago, claiming he had walked the entire 21 kilometers of paths starting at the bottom of the mountain in less than 5 hours. Quite an accomplishment, Li Guang. Way to go. You could actually even climb higher on the wings of Pegasus for an absolutely stunning view of the countryside below. As we continued on, we found these interesting spots, fissures in the rock face, of which there are always 2 paths, through and around. Now I judged that I could make it through this, and I did squeeze through, barely. As I paused on the other side, it was only to hear Song yell out,
I don't even need a segue.
We continued on until we came to this narrow fissure in the rock, at which I took one look and said, "No thank you, not for me," and went around. And while I thought she might do the same, no, she had to show off one more time by easily squeezing through the narrow confines.
Very easy.
For you.
Proud of ourselves, are we? And so it was, with legs turning to jelly, looking back on where we had been, it was time to actually start our descent. Well, we made it to the bus station for the ride down, but declined and walked down the road itself, switching back until we came to a bit more sightseeing and the next bus station, where it was time for me, at least, to almost crawl on that bus and head down the side of the mountain to exit the park and once more go to our car for the journey back to Dandong and a hard-won night of rest. Today was our last day in Dandong, but before we left, we stepped right outside the apartment in which we'd been staying and took another walk along the river. We took a look at the Chinese side, indulged in a little Chinese exercise. This one's called wax on, wax off, or maybe driving the boat. Took one last look at the unused new Yalu River bridge before heading off to see what we could find for lunch here. This neat building is a converted factory building, once manufacturing paper goods, with the massive inside converted to a Chinese street market. This very neat place had literally hundreds of food stalls. From healthy fruits and vegetables, and who knows what that is, to a tea house called Auntie Jenny, ball description, fried squid puffs, and everything in between. Our first stop was here, where we would get a sampling of some nice juicy dumplings, or sometimes called soup dumplings. Very good start. Onward we wandered past ever more interesting foodstuffs, cereals, and candies, with candied haw vendors walking by, everything imaginable on a stick, some delicious looking fried grubs, and even some cuttlefish on a stick that could fry up for you. There were plenty of dessert items or candy items, and we stocked up on these and just continued to wander through the fascinating faux streets inside this huge old building. At times, this seemed very state fair-like, with plenty of deep-fried, baked, steamed or boiled treats to be had just for the payment. And along with the less identifiable, there were frogs. There were pancakes. There were ducks hanging. And a variety of spring rolls or wraps. Gelatin-based products. And what looked to be chunks of ham floating in a broth. I met the Birdman of Dandong. And we proceeded upstairs to a museum where we learned more about the history of the building, Dandong's industrial past, and I had a chance to converse with an AI representative of the museum.
AI language learning. I can understand and respond to your English. If you have any questions or need assistance, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. I have no questions, but you're doing a fine job.
Thank you for your kind words. I'm here to help if you need anything.
As we wandered through the small but interesting museum, we found that Dandong had an interesting and robust past as an industrial center for China. As it seemed, everything was produced in Dandong, from clothing to motorcycles and bicycles to photo enlargers, a number of Chinese liquors, to silk and silk garments. There was an interesting display of Chinese apartments through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then it was time to head back downstairs for a little more grazing and to find out what the community stage was all about. If you are a member of the community, you can sign up to strut your stuff, whatever that stuff is, for whatever audience you can draw. Today's entertainer, at least while we were there, is this lady playing the erhu. Now, the erhu is an interesting Chinese instrument that produces a mournful kind of sound using two strings that are bowed with a horsehair bow and a sounding chamber strung over with a tight wrap of python skin. It is said that it takes 10 years to learn how to play the erhu and a lifetime to master the instrument. Well, that's it. It was now time to return to the train station, hop on the bullet train, and head back to Beijing. I, for one, certainly enjoyed our time in Dandong. Even though billed as the most dangerous city in China, it is not. And the most dangerous thing about it, again, at least for me, turned out to be that crazy hiking journey to Phoenix Mountain. Well, that's it for our trip to Dandong. I hope you enjoyed it. Please stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date with new videos as they drop. And what's next in this series is our one-night journey to Tianjin. Only a half-hour ride by bullet train from Beijing. If you have the time and inclination, please check out some of our other videos. And as always, safe and happy journeys from T's Cruise and Travel Muse.